Good afternoon, Joey back here on the channel, 29th of July. Today, if you're tuning in, talking about fire weather forecast, fire behavior expectations. Of course, we got a large outbreak of thunderstorms coming to Western Canada, starting mainly on Wednesday, although there is a little bit of thunderstorm activity out there today. I think it really kicks into high gear Wednesday in through towards the weekend. So we're expecting a lot of fire starts in BC. So what we're going to do is look at the problem areas that we have so far in Western Canada, look at maybe the weather we're going to see on top of it a little bit, and then we're going to talk also about what's actually going on as well right now in terms of active fires. So stick around to the channel, hit like, share, subscribe. Let's get on with the show. There it is. This is bad news. My God. Right now. Anything could happen. Get on! Wow. I'll watch the video later. They dry mopping this. I just got back in the door. I've been cutting a load of firewood, and it is 30 Celsius suddenly in Wells right now. The temperature just jumped up from 24 to 30 Celsius in the last hour here, so that's unbelievable. That's why we have a heat warning in effect I've been telling you about, up to 34 degrees potential in the Caribou, and then down south we could see as high as 38, somewhere 35 to 38. And the Alberta side, heat warning as well now up there in northern Alberta. Heat warning into the Northwest Territories. We got a severe thunderstorm watch in BC and the Watson Lake area. That's going on. And there's also a severe thunderstorm watch up into the interior of the Yukon as well. So a couple severe thunderstorm probabilities already today. And the rest of this on the map is all air quality, air quality, air quality. Air quality, yeah, really bad air quality out there. It's burning a lot. We'll talk about Saskatchewan and Manitoba a little bit too, because I know a lot of you like to come around here to the channel, don't live in British Columbia. I like to try to do more for you. I'm going to try to do more for everybody, I think, this next year. So we have our first significant weather map that's up for Wednesday now, our first look. And it's a little bit telling. Now, this is more or less the area where I said supercell thunderstorms are most likely. And this map makes me believe that they think they're going to be really on a northward trend, their movement. So areas like Watson Lake, maybe even Fort Nelson on the cusp there, that northwest corner is going to see a lot of lightning, but so is the rest of the province. And I suspect that tomorrow morning when we wake up and they have the refreshed map out, it's going to look even a little deadlier than this, a little bit more detailed, right? So this is sort of like the first statement they made, but the 2 to 3 centimeter hail, that's supercell behavior, that's severe thunderstorm behavior. So expect watches up there tomorrow on Wednesday for sure. Other areas may see severe watches as well, though. There's going to be so much widespread lightning on Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday will be making its way mostly into the eastern side of the province on its way out. Slow-moving system trying to push its way in. We have high pressure blocking. We have a large low-pressure system trying to push in from the coast. It's being blocked. That's going to create a lot of tension, and we're going to have a lot of dry thunderstorms. So the thing coming with these thunderstorms is not much rain. Maybe later towards the weekend, they'll start getting a little bit more rain-like, but I think we're going to see a lot of dry lightning. That's what Wildfire Service is preparing for. That's what I'm telling you. I know if you go look at your weather app and it says, 10% chance of precipitation, keep in mind, these are dry thunderstorms, right? So, your precipitation indications on your app aren't necessarily a good indication as to whether or not thunderstorms are going to be in your area. And keep in mind, if there's a small precipitation base and a thunderstorm's throwing lightning all over, it's going to start fires possibly outside. It's going to be able to strike outside. With this heat, you can bet there'll be lots of downstrokes, lots of ground strikes happening. So as we get into it, we'll start with looking at BC Wildfire Service's map, and their own fire danger ratings today are interesting in themselves. I mean, when's the last time that we looked up to the piece and we saw greens somewhere up there, somewhere north of Fort St. John, a low fire danger? That's unbelievable after so many years of burning, and even only moderate risk still up there. Although the heat is up there and that risk continues, I'm hoping that they take rain in the next week enough to keep this trend the way it is, despite this hot spell. I think what we're lucky with this hot spell is that we haven't had a whole lot more of it before a big lightning event like this. So this is still a pretty good looking fire danger map for today. It will look a little bit more red tomorrow and a little bit more red the day after that. Unfortunately, we are drying out. But say instead of a week and a half of fairly warm weather that we've had, cooking, dry, low humidity weather that we have now. Imagine if we'd had like several weeks of that and then have a lightning event like what's coming. So that's some good news, I think, that we do have areas that are looking pretty good. I'm surprised to see my area close to the high danger. I have observed personally that puddles have dried up quick this week. Great big puddles that have been there for a month or two have disappeared pretty fast this last couple of days. So maybe there's something to this. Maybe there is indeed. What's interesting is to see like kind of a reverse of fortunes, where instead of the western half of the province being in the green, we're looking at more the eastern half of the province being in the green. You're looking at where some of those reds, the extreme fire danger is. We're looking at Vancouver Island. We're looking at places in the Coast Mountains, a few pockets down there where it's either high or extreme in, around Cache Creek, of course, and Ashcroft and Lytton and places like that, a few spots in there. As you go up the coast, we see some concerning areas, kind of bordering near the Francois Lake country, this and that, where it looks like it's an extreme danger. We got some extreme danger to the far north, and we know that this is our area of strong thunderstorms tomorrow. We're probably going to see that severe outbreak almost assuredly go down. There's going to be a lot of lightning up there. There's going to be a lot of fire starts in northwest sector. Maybe the good news for them is that they're also the most likely to take some rain over the next week as this system tries to work its way through and out and do what it does. So, that's nice. But so we have, not crazy heat coming through after the weekend, like after these storms move out, although I think it might warm up again next week. So like how big is our window for really active, aggressive burning? We're in a window, coming into a window right now. How much the door can shut on it, that we'll have to wait, I guess, into the weekend and see what happens, how much lightning there was, how much rain there was, how little rain there was, and kind of reassess, right? But so far, it's almost August. This is a nice map as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not trying to sell you fear. I'm telling you that the fire story you've been used to all summer is changing, and I don't want you to be complacent because wow, there's no fires this year, because there very well may be a bunch of new fires this week, and it's not to scare you. It doesn't do me any personal good if you're scared. In fact, I don't like the idea of people being scared after they watch my forecast. I'd like you to start preparing. Have a warlike attitude. British Columbia in the summer now is lightning and wildfires. That's some of the realities we have to face. So there is a couple new fires that started out there in the last 24 hours. There's this guy down by Lytton, K701905, discovered on July 28th. I heard it was probably from the train. That's human caused. That's what I'm seeing. Well, let's see what the full details say, how much details they actually give on that. 150 hectares at last report. Suspected is human cause, either by accident or intentionally. So it's very well likely that the train had something to do with this. I think that's probably a reasonable assumption. We do have a picture here we could look at quickly. As you can see, very active. Lots of white smoke at least. So spreading. I'm sure it's been active today. The Cantilever Bar wildfire started late yesterday afternoon, 10 kilometers south of Lytton on the west side of the Fraser River. Estimated this morning, at least when updated, 150 hectares. I'm sure it's grown a little bit since then. It's very challenging, steep terrain there. It's probably not, and it's climbing up the mountain most likely, or down the valley. Is there road access? And I'm sure it takes some time. So I'm sure it's grown a little bit no matter what. The fire is expected to increase as smoke clears and personnel are able to get updated perimeter track. So the fire size, they even say it's probably going to get bigger. Thompson-Nicola Regional District and Lytton First Nations put evacuation alerts in place for properties on the west side of the Fraser River, north of the fire's location. And the air is coming mainly from the south this week. That's where the heat is, and that's why we're getting the heat. It's displaying rank 2 and 3 behavior at that time that they reported. I'm sure this afternoon heat, some of it is, getting into the 4 category at least, quite likely. I'm sure it's torching off some trees occasionally now. 45 firefighters are on site with structure protection personnel. One crew's working on guard construction on the south flank, the safest flank to work on so far. So button up that south so that at least that's, taken care of for when winds change. Another crew is working on guard construction on the north flank, where it's probably much more dangerous. Structure protection personnel are assessing and setting up sprinklers. So we have people on the ground there who are trying to make sure that they're ready. 3 helicopters are supporting. So 45, 3 helicopters, structure protection. So now we'll talk a little more broadly. Now we're out of British Columbia. As you notice on the wildfire chart, most of the fires in BC are up in the north, and the activity there is kind of calm. We'll look at activity in a little bit. First, though, we'll look at our fine fuel moisture code here in province and kind of get a look at the FFMCs. Tell us, what twigs are like and grass blades and little tiny things, how dry are those things? It seems like things are drying out fast in the very center of the province where that heat wave is now taking effect, is manifesting. So things are drying out fast there. So any lightning strike that hits the fine fuels at least stands a chance to ignite the fine fuels. That's telling. The fine fuels are the ones that at least get it going. And the FFMCs are still pretty high up in the north, high across northern Alberta, high across Saskatchewan. There's a lot of burning going on, high across parts of Manitoba, but it seems to take a bit of a dip down there from the elbow in Manitoba straight up into the northwest corner in Saskatchewan. So a little bit lower indices there for fine fuels. Let's head to the next one here. Duff moisture code. Look at our Duff moisture code for today. This is today's map. So by Thursday, what are we looking at in BC? Where are the danger areas? Seems like Vancouver Island's really in trouble for fire danger still in that one section of BC where we do expect to see quite a bit of lightning up there. Those are problem areas. We'll get back to this. So the fine fuels at the surface are pretty dry in the central interior BC, but the Duff layer isn't, at least. So the ground isn't completely soaked. So that's great, because that could mean too that fire might have a little bit more trouble taking and living through a night if it can't find nice and ready fuel to burn down into. Right. So that's at least a positive. You can see those values are a little bit higher as you go sort of that elbow near the south, go south of Highway 16, south of Telkwa, south of Burns Lake, and get into that area where it's the Duff moisture is very, very low, very dry, and surprisingly dry on Vancouver Island, up the coast, and of course expectedly dry in very southern British Columbia. Saskatchewan, central Saskatchewan, even though we've seen those fine fuels are a little bit lower in Manitoba, took a bit of a beating. We still have areas where if you go just a little bit into the ground, you're going to come into dry ground pretty quickly there. Saskatchewan, Alberta, seeing very dry conditions. Northwest Territories as you go further north. But look, this is northern BC is not bad off considering all the lightning they're going to be taking this week. So that's good news. Maybe that's the best place for the biggest strong storms. Again, keeping in mind that this sort of quadrant here, the fine fuels are pretty dry in some of these areas. They've been getting a lot of heat, but if you go into the depth of the ground, well, we'll have a look at drought code here in a second. And you see that despite the fact that some of the fine fuels and indices and whatnot and Duff indices are a little bit down for a change in the Peace area up to Fort Nelson, that side of the Rockies is still in drought conditions. Northwest Territories, big time in drought conditions. They've been in for a while, it's concerning. And that continues across the prairies as well and through those same sections where we're seeing a lot of fire. And of course, we're seeing a lot of fire because that correlates to the drought conditions. And of course, the Duff moisture code correlates to these drought conditions as well. But as you can see, there's a lot of areas west of Prince George that are technically, I would call, in drought still. They're in drought right now. Southern BC seeing areas. And of course, most of Vancouver Island has not got the expected rain that you would typically see in a forecast period. Like say if we go back to April and be like, I would call that our forecast period and be like, well, how much rain have they had? Is it average to what they've had most years? It would seem not. So here's some more good news. At least we're going to get a lot of lightning and we have conditions drying out. However, at least I think in the coming days, the ISI's, the initial spread index, isn't off the charts. So that means our fire is going to take off and just go out of control, crazy running. How far will these fires spread on first contact with, the lightning striking the ground and the fire starts up? How fast will these fires spread? These are good indices for BC at this time of year. We're coming into a big thunderstorm outbreak, going to have lots of new fires. But hey, I'm not expecting to see out of control fire situation, even if there's 50 or 100 or 200 new fires on the board come Saturday and we're looking back, or we're waiting to see how many lightning strikes are sizzling around out there, not showing themselves. There could be a lot of new fire starts coming out of this. I don't want to guess what the number is. It could be 50. It could be 250. We've had that before in BC. But again, we're not in the condition that we are usually in July at this time. We're in pretty good condition to take quite a bit of lightning and not come out of it with roaring fires all over the place going completely nuclear. That's not the same for Saskatchewan, though. That central part of Saskatchewan especially, their spread index is off the charts, and you're seeing Crown Fire standing up there ranked 6 and running today. I'm sure that's going on in Saskatchewan. We'll look at firms in a minute and see. Build up index, again, showing southern British Columbia, Vancouver Island being really, really bad areas, seeing far to the west of Prince George being a bad area, seeing parts of central Alberta, central Saskatchewan being really bad, parts of Manitoba really bad. Build-up index is pretty high in the Northwest Territories still. Very good in lots of northern BC, very good in the Rocky Mountains. These are great signs for us. Here we're looking at head fire intensity. What is the chance for extreme fire behavior? Seems like Saskatchewan's really still in that danger area and a little bit up into Northwest Territories as well, So you may have fires being very active in a lot of these other places, but these are the areas right now, when you're in between that 1,000, 10,000 and 40,000 plus kilowatts meter. You're looking at of energy expenditure. What's the head fire intensity? How likely is it that fires can just pick up, go, and run long distances standing, like the extreme fire behavior that, terrifies us the most. So that's other good news about BC is we might take a lot of new fires, but we're not going to see out of control extreme fire behavior compared to what we may have seen in other summers at this time. I'm not saying there's not going to be some fires that don't do things we want them, that do things we don't want them to do. Obviously, that's the case in Lytton right now. And you see the rate of spread, like how fast can fires spread? How fast? We got some areas that are, in the 3 meters a minute sort of spread rate in BC. But all in all, we're looking really good. I mean, this will decline a little bit in a couple of days of heat. Sure, this is today's maps. Sure, but again, you look at that rate of spread in central Saskatchewan, and we look at firms in a minute, and you see how wild things have been there. You'll get an impression that they really need more rain. And you look at crown fraction burn. It's like, how much of these, when I say, rank 6 fire, we're talking like can fire climb up the trees and burn the entire tree right to the top of the crown. What percentage of the crown will burn in a fire? Our risk for crown fire still is fairly low. I mean, during the afternoon heat, these crossover weather hours like we have, sure, that's there. That can probably happen for a time period, but we're not seeing that extreme fire behavior like, that fueled Scotch Creek Kelowna fires, for example, the kind of fire behavior where it's just moving too fast and too aggressively for anyone to do anything about it. So I have a good feeling that although there'll be a lot of new fires, a lot of them are going to be reachable or catchable. We're going to be able to get people on them. And then we have a bit of a window where we're not into 30-degree temperature after all this resolves itself in a number of days from now, where, we still stand to be in a better position. There should be a little bit more rainfall at the end of all this associated with any thunderstorms that come. So we're not in the dry category, and I don't think we're going to be because of the way the upper level low pattern's been kind of still expected to continue there in the Gulf of Alaska. We're going to keep having that unsettled weather potential, much the way we have all summer. Look at our fire weather index to end the month. Looking good for Yukon and at least the western half of Northwest Territories. Not great for that really dry area. Really not great for southern BC. They're not going to be getting near as much moisture out of any of this as we are. So they're not going to have a huge improvement. And of course, it will stay very warm down there. So it's likely to me that fires that start down there will have success in establishing themselves in some form or another. And again, the fire weather index for Saskatchewan, very high into Manitoba. But, the target, the center of the bullseye seems to be Saskatchewan there. By the time we get to the 31st of July, our fine fuels are going to be very, very dry in the BC interior, very dry down south, very dry out towards the coast and whatnot. So fine fuel moisture code declining down south, improving up in the north a little bit, improving in the Rockies. And I mean, all in all, it's nice to see some of this area BC not be in the red for a change. But we see a big time decline in the duct moisture code over the next couple of days because of this heat. So BC will be more and more receptive to fires as we get further and further into this heat wave. Absolutely. Of course you expect that. And again, Saskatchewan being the bullseye, Northwest Territories being areas. But I mean, hey, look at the duct moisture code up through a lot of northeastern BC. Positive. We haven't seen that in so long. So this is good. There's good news and there's, problems. We have some problems and we have some good things. It's not all bad news here. But it is bad news in Saskatchewan this afternoon. We're seeing a lot of fires showing very aggressive activity. There's the Shoe fire still over there, still active all this time. So much is burned from that fire. We see the fire north of the Larange. That was the Larange fire. It pushed right to the edge of town, burned a few buildings down. I know my friend Hurricane Harley there lost one of his family members or something, lost home. That fire seems to be more active on the north now. We have a bunch of areas here where there's just suddenly reds breaking out all over. I don't know how many of these are new fires, how many are not. Saskatchewan's finally put up their new information map that's way better than their Windows 95 one I've been making fun of all summer. So that's very active. Lots of reds in there. It's currently a lot of really active hot fire activity in Saskatchewan. Looking a little better in Manitoba. A little better. We've definitely seen the white. It's probably yesterday afternoon, evening. This is the last 24 hours. So you look at think the reds and the dark oranges are most definitely today's burning. Some improvement for Manitoba. Not a great deal. Heat is coming. They're going to keep burning. Saskatchewan's going to keep burning this week. We do have when the weather that's in BC makes its way across, they're going to benefit some from some of this weather change too, but there'll probably be more lightning strikes and whatnot as well. There's a lot of red dots on the map in Alberta right now. A lot of red dots, but nothing looking crazy. Nothing's really, this one seems very active. 2025 WB12 seems pretty active there. That's got a lot of organization, but all in all, we see lots of isolated dots all over and nothing that looks really cohesively organized large fire size. However, we go take a look down to BC. We got a couple dots down here that could be, I didn't see on the BC wildfire map if there was a fire start there. That looks suspicious. I know there's one by Revelstoke around here that looks suspicious. I know there was a lot of lightning in that area yesterday. That's probably a fire start somewhere up there. Nothing too cranking going on though. A couple dots on the map there at K609 or 22, and then our Lytton fire we can see has been quite active, it looks like, so far today. Quite active in the afternoon. I would expect those reds are probably a little bit higher rank than the 2 or 3 they were sort of going with this morning. I'm sure there's some candling going on intermittently at the very least in there. So that's quite a bit of activity, fairly large fire. Other than that, though, southern BC looks pretty quiet right now. We'll hope it stays that way. None of the fires on Vancouver Island showing any heat that's detectable by satellite. That's positive news. All in all, we're in a very good situation in BC for this time of year. And I'm saying that could change a little, and if it can persist with some heat into August in any meaningful way and give us some drier conditions, maybe we'd see a big change. I think we'll probably have a lot of fire starts from all this. I don't know how many of these fires will be big time stories. Probably going to be a lot of small fires with the weather not being fully looking like, we're going to come out of this heat wave. This is optimum burning conditions right now. Things may continue to dry out. But again, we're sitting way better than we've been almost every year the last bunch of years when something like this goes down. We had several weeks of dry before lightning started fires all over the place last year. All right, so we had multiple days of thunderstorms. That's a very similar kind of thing in some ways. Multiple days of thunderstorms, multiple days, and then at the end of it, the weather cools down a little bit, and then so hopefully if there's a lot of new starts, we don't have some extreme fire behavior necessarily all over the place from that. That seems to be not too likely, and it seems that conditions are on side for crews to have success against a lot of these new starts as well. So I have a positive feeling about this, but I'm trying to tell you to be ready, be aware for your news feed to start having fire stories. And, I've only been talking about a few days, and we've already had our first big fire story in southern British Columbia. Everyone's like, oh my God, Lytton, Joey was right. It's like, well, these are obvious things. It gets hot. There's no humidity. Things dry out. Fire loves to breathe that dry air. Okay, hit like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, and support the channel if you can. Become a member if you want, or join the Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the guy. If everyone did that who benefits from my forecasting, I'd be able to go chase these thunderstorms this week. That's what I wish I could do that. I wish I could go up to the piece where I think we're going to see some monster storms on Thursday. I'm really feeling it. We'll come back with more thunderstorm forecasting. If you missed my forecast from this morning, I don't think much has changed in the models between this run and whatever run I was looking at this morning. So go have a look at other Joey only videos. Okay, see you later. Bye.